Good morning, everybody. Please excuse my bedhead and the fact that I might look a little bit different than usual. I'm going to try something different today. I spend a lot of time on here talking about things that I do that have helped my mental health. I'm going to approach it from a different angle today, and I'm going to actually show you some of the most pivotal moments in my day that have helped me deal with and generally recover from my own struggles with depression and anxiety. I'm going to do basically just a 24-hour highlight video, things that I do and things that I don't do. Sometimes that's even more important, that I think have helped me get to where I am today. Starting with the morning. I wake up at the exact same time every day, 7 days a week, unless there's something really unusual going on, like me being sick, for example. I am not necessarily a morning person normally. I have not become a morning person, but I have become a person who is, I would say, accepting of mornings, and sticking to the same wake time 7 days a week is a huge part of the reason why. What that allows you to do is wake up from light sleep rather than deep sleep. When you wake up from deep sleep, those are the days when you kind of feel like you're arising from a coffin rather than getting out of bed. Those are the really, really rough mornings that you do not enjoy. If you can basically program your body to always wake up out of light sleep, which it will if you're consistent with your wake time, mornings become a lot more tolerable. There is no magic right time for you to get up. It just depends on your schedule and your lifestyle. I personally get up at 5 a.m. every day. And the main reason for that is it gives me time to have a somewhat either leisurely or productive morning before I go to work. What I do not like to do, and I've learned this from trial and error, is I do not like to wake up and have to immediately get in the shower and get ready for work, or have to be doing something productive. Those types of mornings immediately spike my stress level and my cortisol, and I tend to just feel really ragged and worn out all day. So I give myself a little bit of time in the mornings to just do whatever I feel like doing before I have to get into work mode. My apologies for the little bit of time travel here. I did film this part a little bit later in the morning because I thought of something I wanted to make sure I said early on in this video that I wasn't quite eloquent enough to put into words at 5 in the morning. My whole life, everything I'm going to show you here that I do today, is based on the idea that chronic depression and anxiety are my biggest problems, my biggest weaknesses, and if something's going to take me down or screw up my life, it's going to be the stuff that happens up here in my brain. And so my entire day is structured around doing everything I can and everything I know how to do that helps me manage and reduce feelings of depression and anxiety. I mean, no offense to anyone when I say this, but I hear so many people say, I would do anything to get rid of this feeling. I would do anything to have my depression gone, to have my anxiety gone. And then sometimes we proceed to live in a way that doesn't actually entail doing anything to get rid of it. There are things we know might help. There are things we know we could, or as much as I hate to say this word, should be doing, and we don't incorporate them. I tried that for a long, long time, and it never worked for me. I'm repeating myself from earlier content, I know, but your quest for mental health is your main quest, not your side quest. And if it's something that you just kind of fit in a little bit here and there when it's convenient for you, unless you have pretty mild symptoms, I think it is unlikely that you will see the results that you want to see from that. I treat my mental health like a chronic medical condition because it literally is. And if you don't do that, if you don't take that seriously, it is probably going to be what controls your life. And so if I have the choice between having my life being dictated by mental illness or having my life be dictated by doing things to manage mental illness, I think the latter sounds better. That's why I live the way I do. That's why this content I'm sharing with you today might seem a little extreme, might be like, that's kind of crazy. I don't know if I could live that way. It's so much better. It's so much better. And if you just try it, just see how it goes for you. If you treat this like a chronic health condition and you manage it like a chronic health condition, maybe that's when you'll finally see the results you've been looking for a long time. It's about 5:30 now, and now I am going to allow myself to have just a little bit of caffeine. I don't like having too much early on or really at all, because at least for me, high amounts of caffeine tend to spike my cortisol and therefore spike my anxiety. And I don't necessarily feel energized or focused if I overload myself with caffeine, especially like first thing in the morning. I actually just end up feeling jittery and anxious, which is the exact opposite of what I want my morning to produce. So I have two options here in my little mini fridge. By the way, are those not the best stickers? That's from my brother. Thanks, Tim. Two options for morning energy. I have these, if I'm having a rough morning, I have some instant coffee. I am much too lazy to actually make coffee in the morning, so I just pour some into a cup and add some either hot water or sometimes cold milk to get a little protein in. That's for mornings where I'm having a really tough time getting going. I try to use that sparingly because if I overdo it, it's no good. Every morning, what I will have is one of these Magic Mind energy shots. So these are actually green tea based energy shots. They work a little bit differently than your typical, 5 hour energy or monster or whatnot. They have a lower amount of caffeine, which I personally love, and they supplement the energy that you would normally get from the higher amounts of caffeine with more natural ingredients, specifically mushrooms and herbs. I find that they do give me pretty much the perfect amount of energy and some good mental clarity, but they really help me avoid the negative side effects of caffeine that tend to spike my anxiety, spike my stress level, and just make me have a rough morning. I also just really enjoy the taste of them. They have a nice, sweet green tea matcha like flavor to them. Really, really enjoy this part of my morning. I am going to leave a link below for Magic Mind if you want to check them out. They are a sponsor of today's video. I have found them to be very, very beneficial for my morning routine, and I would highly recommend you guys check them out if you're interested in something to help you get going. So the next 30 or so minutes of my day, the period of time from roughly 5:30 to 6 in the morning, is a period of time for light projects and tasks for me. I am not ready to be in work mode yet. That's going to come a little bit later in the day, but I do feel awake and alert enough to maybe take on a couple smaller things. And that is what helps me kind of reach my next step in the morning and in my motivation and awakened state. So that could be responding to a few emails. That could be setting my agenda for the day. Sometimes it could be doing a little bit of reading. Actually, right now, this is often a period of time where I write as I'm working on my second book, which I'm really excited to share with you guys probably fairly soon. It's coming along really well, and I can't wait to show you guys what I've written. That being said, I want to point out the absence of something here. You may have noticed that other than making this video, which I'm doing on my phone today since I'm at home, I haven't mentioned getting on my phone yet, and that is very, very intentional. I do try to stay off my phone in the morning, other than possibly for purposes of things like responding to emails. There is a lot of scientific data that tells us that early exposure to screens, early exposure is in early in your day, again, really spikes your cortisol level and puts you in this kind of depleted, stressed out, almost zombie-like state all day long. Screens in the morning are not super good for us. It's also just really easy to lose a tremendous amount of time on them. I used to have that habit where I'd wake up to my alarm, which was on my phone, and instantly get on whatever, Instagram, TikTok, internet browser. And next thing I knew it's 5:45. I've lost 45 minutes of my morning. I haven't done anything particularly enjoyable or important, and a huge chunk of my day is gone. That to me ends up actually being a very stressful way to start my day, because although being on the phone in and of itself is not typically stressful, although it can be depending on what pops up on your feed, I just don't like the feeling of losing a tremendous amount of time to my day to something that gives me nothing in return. So I make a very conscious effort to minimize phone use early in the day because it tends to be a rabbit hole I have a hard time getting out of. So it's about 6 now. Next on the agenda is the workout. Now, my physical activity is primarily in support of my mental health. So I'm not necessarily trying to optimize for fat loss or muscle growth or mobility or athletic performance. I just stay physically active so that my heart pumps well and my lungs breathe well because my brain needs blood and oxygen to function properly. I know that working out an hour after you wake up probably doesn't result in the best athletic performance in the world. I also switch up my workouts. I don't always do weights. I don't always do cardio. I just kind of do whatever I feel like doing because that helps me stay consistent with it. Again, this is not because I want to look some certain way. It's because I want to feel some certain way. I work out to change what's inside of me, specifically what's inside my brain, not so much to change the way that I look. So you don't necessarily need to follow any specific plan. Just move your body. Just do things that get you to a moderate intensity physical activity so that you can feel that your body's working harder. All of those resources that your body creates as a result of the workout, they will all reach your brain and they will all help your mental health and your mood and your energy level and your focus throughout the day. I am not me if I don't work out, and it is noticeable. Workout's done. I've mostly caught my breath. Next up is hygiene. 5 non-negotiables every morning for me: shower, shave, hair, wash face, brush teeth. When I was younger, used to resist really having a hygiene routine. I thought that in my kind of dark antisocial nature, I was like, well, who cares? That's silly, that's superficial, that's whatever. And to be honest with you, I still kind of feel that way. I don't, it's like my workout routine. I don't necessarily do these things because I want to look some certain way or for cosmetic purposes. I have a hygiene routine because it makes me feel better about myself. Because the act of investing time, energy, and even a little bit of money into me reinforces the internal message that I am deserving of those things, that I am worthwhile, that I am something I value. I know this sounds a little Stuart Smalley-ish, but sometimes actions speak louder than words. And it's one thing to tell yourself you matter, but it's another thing to treat yourself like you matter. So I take 20, 25 minutes every morning to get ready and to take care of me, take care of my body, take care of my skin, take care of my hair, because I want to believe that I matter to me. If you're familiar with the five love languages, I'm a pretty big acts of service guy. And if you know some of your primary love language, that's not just for you to communicate with other people, that's also for you to communicate with you. And so when I perform acts of service for myself, I feel love both to and from myself. And that is something my life was without for a very, very long time. Trust me when I say this, it's a lot better with it.
All right, morning routine is complete. I am on my way to work now. There's not necessarily anything super critical about the way that I go to work. There's just a couple things I want to check in on with you guys at this point. The first is you've probably noticed that a large part of this video is my morning, and that's not a coincidence. I very, very strongly believe that the morning is the most important chunk of your day with regards to your mental health. At least for me, whatever tone my day starts on tends to be the tone it stays on unless something really unusual happens. Meaning, if I have a pretty good morning, I am usually primed to have a pretty good day unless something really unexpectedly bad happens. But the inverse is also true. If I have a not so great morning, I start my day in a bad mood, and unless something good happens, I pretty much stay in a bad mood all day long. And I've learned through a lot of trial and error that I can't really count on unexpectedly good things happening to me to lift my mood because they just don't happen nearly as often as I would like them to. And so in many cases, I need to be the person who sets up the routine and sets up the experiences that get my day started on a positive note. You may also have noticed that about the first 90 minutes of my day is just me solo doing what I need to do. And I'm sure a lot of you have families or other obligations that might make that difficult to accomplish. What I want to say here is I too have a family. And I have learned that there are three things I would really like with regards to time to myself. I would like to have time in the evening to myself. I would like to get a good night's sleep and get enough sleep, which for me is about 7.5 hours. And I would like some time to myself in the morning. As a person who has been a father for 12 years and a husband for 16 years, my experience has been that under the best of circumstances, you can have 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 if you're lucky. And I have experimented with every possible combination of those three things. And I've determined that at least for me, the two that move the needle the most are sleep and morning. And so I do basically sacrifice time alone at night. I have virtually none. I usually go to bed about 20 or 30 minutes after my kids go to bed. So I have a little bit of time with my wife, and that's it. In theory, I would love to have some time to myself in the evening, but in the past, I have fallen far too much into the pattern of revenge bedtime procrastination, is what it's called, which basically means when your day is really hard and stressful and not that fun, and the only part of your life that you really enjoy is when it's just you alone with your thoughts and your activities, do whatever the heck you want to do, you want to squeeze every possible drop out of that period of your day as possible. And for a lot of us with jobs and families and school and whatnot, that is like the late hours of the night. And I completely understand that. And as I said, I've lived that way for years. And that's why I hated mornings. And that's why every morning was rushed and panicked and stressful and awkward. And by the time I get to work, I've already expended a ton of energy coping with stress and anxiety brought on by my morning routine. So I have found that, at least for me, it is preferable to just cut out the evening alone time, to get it in the morning, and to make sure I get a good night's sleep. One other thing I want to comment on here is the tone of my mornings. I know you guys can't literally see inside my head and see my thoughts, but something I really want to emphasize here is my relationship with myself, and your relationships with yourselves collectively are the relationships that are going to have the most impact on your mental health. because you are in constant communication with yourself all day long. And the way you talk to yourself and the way you respond to yourself is absolutely pivotal for how you feel on a daily basis. I work very hard to be respectful and compassionate and validating to myself, because those are not experiences that I got a lot from other people, particularly in kind of the middle part of my life, like adolescence into early adulthood. And for a long time, I sort of fell in line with that. And I talked to myself and I treated myself the way other people talked to and treated me, which was a lot of negativity and self-abuse, frankly. A lot of, you're not good enough, you're a loser, you're a failure, you're stupid. And on some level in my mind, I thought, if I feel bad enough about myself, I will do good things to try to fix this feeling inside that I don't like. That never worked for me. Maybe that works for some of you. If so, cool. I still think there's probably a cost to it, but it never worked for me. And I found that the worse I felt about myself, the worse I took care of myself, and the worse my life became. So I have worked very hard to reverse that inner dialogue and make sure that I speak to myself the way I would speak to somebody who I care about and respect and value. There was this really awkward period of time when I first started doing that where it didn't feel genuine. Where it kind of felt like someone was being like condescending or almost sarcastic to you. And I found that, at least for me, I just had to push through that because it was temporary. And over repetition, my brain learned that I do feel that way about myself. And now it feels genuine and true and real. Just pulled into work. There's one really important thing I did not show you guys this morning, and that is breakfast. The reason I didn't show breakfast is because I didn't make it this morning. I am a huge breakfast guy. If I skip breakfast, I get hangry. My brain doesn't have enough caloric energy to function. My emotion regulation, my behavioral inhibition, my social functioning, they all tank. And so breakfast is absolutely critical to my morning routine. However, I didn't have time to make it today because I was making this video instead. It's okay. I'm always prepared for breakfast emergencies. So I do always have some meal replacement bars or something I can eat really quick if I don't have time to make a full breakfast. These are my worst case scenario. Under no circumstances, unless I am violently ill, perhaps, will I skip breakfast. Ideally, I like to have, eggs, bacon, toast, the big normal fancy breakfast. Some days just don't play out that way though. So try to eat a full breakfast when you can, but always have a backup plan for the days when it's just not in the cards. So I've got about 50 minutes now before I start seeing clients. I like to get to work a little bit before I have to actually do work, because although I do love what I do, like everybody, my job, when you do anything 40, 50, sometimes even 60 hours a week, it feels like a little bit of a grind no matter how much you love it. And I found that when I get to work and immediately just have to start working, I can feel a little bit resentful of the fact that I have to be here. Getting here a little bit early and having some time to myself to work on projects I want to work on, or just relax for a little bit, really helps me get in the right mindset and the right mood to see people and try to help people. Something else that's really critical is hydration. If your body doesn't feel good, your brain is probably not going to feel good either. If you're not getting enough water, you're going to be more prone to headaches, body aches, and just general physiological discomfort. These things are not good for your depression or your anxiety. Anybody with chronic pain, chronic health conditions can attest to this. The worse your body feels, the worse your brain feels, and the worse your mood is. So taking proper care of your body through hydration can actually help stave off depression that is associated with physical discomfort. Some of the symptoms of dehydration can also feel suspiciously like a panic attack, and your brain might notice that and misinterpret dehydration as anxiety and ramp up the anxiety in your brain, causing you to stress or even panic because you literally didn't drink enough water. So as silly and basic as that might sound, fluid intake is absolutely a component of your mental health. 48 to 64 ounces a day of just pure water is the gold standard here. Try to aim for that, and you might be shocked by how much of a difference that makes. Now, obviously, I can't show you the majority of my workday because it is confidential and covered by HIPAA. I will check in with you guys a few times throughout the workday to show you what I do when I'm not with clients to help stay fresh and reasonably peppy and happy and helpful to the people I'm here to serve.
All right, it's about noon, which means it is lunchtime for me. The name of the game while I'm at work is just keeping those buckets full, making sure that I don't get too hungry, making sure that I don't get too tired, making sure I don't get dehydrated, making sure I don't go too long without taking at least a short break here and there. Because if I continue to give my brain all of the resources that it needs to do its job properly, my emotions will be as regulated as they're capable of being. I will be able to inhibit behaviors, stay present, engage in long term planning, concentrate, remember. These are all the things I need to keep my brain running at maximum capacity. I don't want to ever have a mood episode or an anxiety episode that was completely preventable with basic self care strategies. Remember that your physiological needs are also your brain needs because your body is your brain's home. So try not to go more than 5 or 6 waking hours without eating. Today I've got smoked chicken with vegetable lasagna. I try to always prep 2 or 3 days worth of meals in advance so that I don't have to think too hard about lunch, or that on a day like today, if I only have 5 minutes to eat, I can do it real quick and I don't have to figure out where to go or what to do. I try to preemptively meet as many of my needs as possible to keep my day as simple as it can be. Break time, and from the looks of things, this will be my only break of the day. But that's okay. I kind of prefer to get all my work done in one big chunk and then just be done and go home and move on to the next day. One of the rules I have for my breaks is I don't do anything too fun or too engaging during my breaks. That might sound a little bit weird, but I found that if I get into like phone gaming or YouTube or stuff like that, I don't really want to go back to work and keep doing my job because those things are so stimulating to my brain that I have a hard time pulling myself away from them. So my parameters for taking a break are I define what it is that I want from the break. Right now, honestly, I have a lot of paperwork left to do. I'm feeling a bit stressed. And so if I know that I need a break that relieves my stress, I'll probably turn towards things like deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, maybe some light physical activity, something to just kind of either bring that energy down or take the edge off a little bit. That also helps me define the break. So I know that once I start to feel better in those certain domains, that's when I'm ready to stop the break and go back to work. I found that if I don't define my breaks, sometimes they end up getting longer and longer and longer, and then my work gets drug out more and more, and I have to stay here later or work from home. And that's ultimately what I'm trying to avoid. So, for the sake of my mental health, I keep my breaks short and simple. After work, I make myself consciously reflect on things I feel like I did well, successes, things I got done, comments I said in therapy sessions that were well received, because I've learned the hard way that if I don't do that, I will get the opposite of that. Meaning my brain, because it has an inherent negativity bias and some pre-existing maladaptive belief systems, will tend to remind me of all the things I did wrong, all the things I wish I'd said differently, or maybe not said at all the tasks that are still remaining on my to-do list, and it will keep that stuff cycling in my brain over and over and over again. I haven't found a way to completely stop that. I'm actually not sure if we can completely stop that. But I found that if I consciously sort of turn the wheel in my mind to orient to the positive, I end up with a more balanced appraisal of my day rather than just the constant barrage of criticism that my mind will automatically find its way to. So if you're anything like me, and realistically, we probably all are to some extent, and your brain automatically finds all the failures, all the regrets, all the screw ups, but doesn't seem to readily also tell you what you did a good job on, make sure you consciously prompt it to do that, or else you end up feeling like you either screwed things up or did nothing, neither of which is a particularly positive feeling at the end of a hard day when you put in a lot of time and energy and frankly deserve to feel at least a little bit good about the stuff you did. So as I get ready for bed, which obviously is at pretty much the exact same time every night, for me that's about 9:30 to get my 7.5 hours, there's three things I always do before bed. One, brush my teeth. Two, wash my face. And three, I do about 15 minutes of light stretching or mobility. If I skip that, I really regret it. My body, frankly, kind of sucks, and it hurts a lot, and I get very tense and very tight very easily. And as we talked about before, when my body gets sore, it really triggers a lot of feelings of depression and anxiety. The mind body link is so strong. And if you are not generally comfortable and confident in your body, it can really mess with your mind, your thoughts, your emotional health, and your self perception. So that's something I found that's always worth adding into my nighttime routine. I want to add a couple last thoughts here before we wrap up. The first is If this seems like a lot to you, know that I stepped into this over time. I didn't just wake up one day, flip my life upside down, and decide to start doing all of these things. I added them step by step, and I waited until I was pretty confident and pretty strong with each step before adding another one. The second is, I know it seems like a lot, but I really believe that over time and with consistency, you can do this. I don't do much else. I know I showed you obviously just a brief little snippet of my life, but honestly, pretty much the only things I did today that I didn't explicitly show you were spending a few hours with my family after work and my job itself, which of course is HIPAA protected and confidential. I really just focus on the things that I need every day because I found that if my life gets bogged down with a lot of other things that I think I need or tell myself that I need, I don't have time for everything. And the stuff that I really need, which is the stuff I showed you today, tends to get kicked out in favor of lighthearted leisure stuff. And it's fine to have that stuff, but don't let it be the reason that you don't sleep. Don't let it be the reason you don't eat well. Don't let it be the reason you don't move your body. And don't let it be the reason you don't go to work or connect with your family. Because those are the things that we really need to build and strengthen that foundation that's going to help us get through the tough times every day. Let me know if this different way of looking at my life and some of the things I do was beneficial. I'd be happy to do something like this again down the road if you guys like this different format. As always, take care, and I'll see you next time.